Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate coming at you for another slam bang movie review, I hope. Coming at you to review a movie that I never necessarily intended on. I didn't know if I was going to really, well, I imagine I would have seen it eventually, but a movie that during, last year's frickin' Black Friday bullcrap on Amazon actually got the Blu-ray for, I think it was $5 or $6, so it was kind of like, oh, well, that's kind of a no-brainer. I'm gonna, it was a no-brainer to me to pay I think it's probably like six and some change or something like that dollars for the Blu-ray of Cult of Chucky. Now, it should be said before I start this review that, me and Matt reviewed all the Child's Play movies up to this point, and I remember it's kind of humorous because when we, when I ended the review of our review of Curse of Chucky, I think that was the most recent one, I said, like, thus ends the Chucky franchise. No, I guess not. We've got Cult of Chucky, which is the second straight-to-video Chucky movie after Curse of Chucky, which was, I think that was the first straight-to-video, right? Because the one before that was Seed, which was the last Chucky movie to be in the theater. So obviously, getting this, I probably got this to, get the amount of money you need to get free shipping on Amazon. And also just $6, six and some change for the Blu-ray of Cult of Chucky. I mean, it's got to be worth that. I wasn't expecting anything from Cult of Chucky, and incidentally this particular release has a lenticular, I don't know if you can kind of see the gurney or whatever back there move. It's got a lenticular slipcover. I didn't, let's face it, I thought Curse of Chucky was not particularly interesting and just like, oh my gosh, just holding on to the last vestige of, I don't know, whatever. You can see our review to see what I thought about that movie. But I never thought after that kind of disaster that they would ever make another Chucky movie. That's why I kind of assumed it was the last one. But alas, they made Cult of Chucky. And I gotta tell you, man, I'm going to start the review by saying, in my opinion, this is the best Child's Play, or well, we'll say it's the best Chucky movie since Child's Play 3. I was completely blown away. It's winter, so I wasn't blown out of the water. I was blown out of the snow. I could not believe it. First off the bat, I just want to say that, and this is, following is going to be my review, or my answer, my reasons why I say I was blown out of the snow. Obviously, if you stayed till after the credits of Curse of Chucky, you know that Alex Vincent, for the first time since Child's Play 2, reprised briefly, albeit very briefly, reprised his role as Andy Barclay from the first two Child's Play movies to kind of blow Chucky away. Chucky or Tiffany, someone mailed Chucky doll to Andy Barclay after the end credits of Curse of Chucky. But Alex Vincent, which is his real name? Okay, that's his real name. Andy Barclay was waiting for him and presumably blew his head off with a shotgun. So what's really cool about the beginning of what's this called? Cult of Chucky is that the movie opens with Andy Barclay, who's Alex Vincent, doing his best to look like number one, Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek Next Generation. I mean, you think it is frickin' Will Riker in the flesh. He should really, yeah, it's funny. But anyway, Andy Barclay on a blind date, internet date or whatever the hell it is, trying to get a date, and presumably this is one of many date flops. Basically, the girl did an internet search on Andy Barclay and discovered that he was, the kid who had the dealings with the Chucky doll and stuff in the 80s and late 80s, early 90s and stuff, and she kind of gets him to admit that he's got, a gun and guns and is for protection. I think, it's fair to say that Alex Vincent's portrayal of Andy Barclay in this movie isn't none too, impressive, but I think, not a lot of range or whatever you might say about his performance in this movie, but I think it strangely suits the character where, Andy Barclay could potentially be in this point of his life where, we see after the blind date goes south, which I thought was an absolutely just funny and interesting way to start this movie. We see him go back to his frickin', you know, presumably his house in the country, which is this absolutely beautiful frickin' like log cabin house. It's just a place that would be so cool to actually have your house be there. But on a wintry night, I think this was made in Canada, presumably for, you know, less money than to make it here. But this movie's really cool. Incidentally, it's this really cool wintry thing about this movie, and you know I like to review winterish movies you know, around the winter time. So he drives home to his, you know, log cabin house after the failed botched blind date, goes inside. He's got a frickin' arsenal of guns. You know, obviously this childhood trauma, you know, obviously affected him. So get this is so cool. At this point this is only a few minutes into the movie. At this point I'm going, oh my god, this is so cool. And it's only like not even 10 minutes into the movie. He goes over to this framed sweatshirt, which is a sweatshirt from, you know, like a crew sweatshirt from the Kent Military Academy sweatshirt. Probably not one from the movie, but who knows, maybe not. But it's, you know, it's the Military Academy from Part 3, of course, you know, whatever his name is. I can't confuse the... Alex Vincent obviously wasn't playing Andy Barclay in Part 3, but it's a cool way to do a nod to Part 3, where Andy removes this framed Kent Military Academy crew sweatshirt, only to reveal behind it a frickin' safe, which he unlocks and opens up to reveal like the severed, blown halfway in half head of Chucky with like nails and all kinds of torture stuff done to it. Basically, you know, he didn't kill Chucky at the end of, you know, after the end credits of Curse of. He's still alive, and he's basically got his head on this, you know, platter, this whatever you want to call it, little thing where he can put it in the safe and carry it around. And so basically he comes home from a botched, you know, another presumably failed date attempt to come home and basically torture. You know, he'll take out the Chucky head and put it on the table, and, you know, so there's Chucky, half of his head's blown off, he's got nails sticking out of his head, and who knows what else is wrong with him. And it's just like, Chucky's alive. He's like, I think he said something about another, you know, date that didn't work out or whatever, and Alex Vincent, I think, proceeds to get like some kind of a torch and just basically, you know, he's screw the date, he's just gonna come home and torture this killer which ruined his life, basically ruined his childhood. So I think the scene ends with him like blowtorching Chucky's face or whatever, and I think it goes into the title of the movie at that point. But then, I mean, that was just like, oh man. And for me, unfortunately, we don't spend a whole hell of a lot of time with Alex Vincent in this movie, which kind of was disappointing. After that, we cut to the title, and then we cut to a... I'm going to try not to do a beat by beat, but basically the character, you know, the Brad Dourif's real daughter, the character in the wheelchair from the previous movie, Curse of Chucky, is being transferred to from, I think, maximum to lesser of a security mental facility at the beginning of the movie, and she goes there. And I gotta say that, like I say, this whole movie takes place in this wintry atmosphere, and this wherever they filmed to be this mental, you know, house is really a kind of a cool building, and actually wherever they filmed the interiors, I'm assuming this is a real place and not, you know, some real building or something, and not sets and stuff. But, you know, wherever this movie was filmed has got this really cool kind of look to it and stuff, and very, you know, plain just white walls and corridors and stuff. Very kind of the opposite from the, I think I called it like the Addams Family mansion house in the previous installment. I kind of like the production design, or the way the facility looks for the majority of this movie. So we got this character, and I think it's kind of sad because obviously this woman's in this, you know, this woman, Brad Dourif's real life daughter, the character from the previous movies, in the mental house, and I think by now they've actually kind of talked her into the fact. It's kind of hard to tell, but I think they kind of talked her into the fact that, you know, she's nuts. I think they made her, you know, believe that in fact she's nuts, rather than this actual killer doll stuff actually happened to her. But what's really, really genius about this movie is it's a perfect setting for the sequel to take place to Curse of Chucky, where you've got a character that, you know, full-grown character that endured all this killer doll stuff, is have it take place at a nut house. Obviously, to everyone else, the idea of a killer doll is absolutely insane. So anyone's gonna think you're nuts. So what's really cool about this movie is, you're introduced to some other main characters. This guy with multiple personality disorder and this Asian chick, and I think this one woman who, I can't remember if this other woman character killed. She probably, I don't know if it was accidentally or unintentionally, she's in the nut house because I think she killed her kid, whether it was on purpose or not. But that character comes into play greatly because, what ends up happening is the shrink doctor guy or whatever that's supposedly trying to treat this main character from the previous movie girl in the wheelchair who's nuts. I think he takes the first time we see a Chucky doll in this movie, he takes a doll from under his desk or whatever, and he's just like, here, we're gonna bring this out for the treatments or for the sessions and stuff to try to help you cope with what you went through. And of course, knowing that Chucky's real life head is frickin', at Andy Barclay's, you're kind of like, well, this is just a doll, it's not going to be dangerous or whatever. And then that goes on for a while. Then what ends up happening, if I'm not mistaken, is actual, Jennifer Tilly, of course, plays Tiffany in this movie, and I think she basically, I can't remember if she brings the doll. Anyway, we end up, so first I think the doctor brings out a good guy doll to help with the sessions and treating or whatever, and then I think either Tiffany brings another doll. I think Tiffany brings another doll. Somehow another doll shows up. And then that doll comes to life, and it's just like, at this point, we're like, well, how is that Chucky if Chucky's head is being tortured back at Andy Barclay's house? But whatever, we go with it. Basically, at one night, Chucky goes in to, presumably go kill this wheelchair-bound girl from the previous movie, only to find her in the bed, having, taken out a spoke from a wheelchair and slashed a big slash down her arm and is trying to bleed herself out onto the ground. And then I think we just fade away, and her point of view kind of goes blurry and sees Chucky go blurry, and then she wakes up the next morning with her frickin' arm stitched up, and on the pool of blood on the floor it says "not so fast," and she's like, oh my god, how frickin' cool is that? So I don't know if Chucky, what he was going to do. Oh, actually no, never mind. We end up finding out what I think his intentions were later on towards the end of the movie. In that scene, but basically he saves her from killing herself. How cool and switcheroo from Chucky is that? Saving someone who was trying to kill themselves and writing "not so fast" in the pool of blood. Oh my gosh! At this point in the movie, I don't know if it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes in, but this is I'm going, holy! I'm already at the point where I've watched this twice, I think, and I'm already at the point where this is absolutely fantastic. I couldn't believe it at this point. So, trying not to do a beat by beat, I'll simply say that this movie is absolutely fantastic. The male character that's got multiple personalities, plays in a great part into the role of, not knowing, because at one point, there's two Chucky dolls at this point. One of them we know is possessed by Chucky. Somehow, we don't know how, because he's also Chucky, the severed head at Andy Barclay's place. But like I say, whatever, we're going with it because it's so kind of cool regardless. So at some point, obviously, this woman patient who killed her kid ends up with a doll, and we don't know if that doll, and of course at this point we don't know which doll is Chucky and which doll isn't. So there's this scene later on where, she actually breastfeeds the good guy doll, and only to find when she puts her shirt back to see blood come out. So it's that was obviously Chucky, and Chucky, it's just so it's just such a perfect place to do a Child's Play movie, because you're doing it in this nut house, and having this character that formerly killed her little child son or infant son or whatever, and having this woman become clingy with this good guy doll, which unbeknownst to her is actually possessed, is just unbelievable. And obviously when it comes possessed, she just thinks she's nuts and imagining it. And then there's this scene where, I can't remember, someone dies, I can't remember, I can't remember who dies. Oh, this old crazy woman that was giving the main wheelchair-bound character a hard time ends up dying, and I think they end up burying her. I guess they just bury the inmates out in the yard, or out in the grounds outside, and after when people die or whatever. And then what ends up happening is, I don't know, this crazy girl, this crazy woman with the good guy doll like throws Chucky in the grave, and then this guy with multiple personalities gets pushed in or falls in, and he comes out like with this grin and looks at the main character up in the window like, you know, I don't know if he smiles at her. So at that point, you don't know if like Chucky got himself out of the doll into that guy because he's got multiple personalities, and one of them I think is Charles. And it's just like, oh my God, it's crazy because this movie, in my opinion, is better than what was the Bride of Chucky? Well, better than all of the, you know, the ones after 3. And it's unfortunate that this one wasn't in the theater, because this one, in my opinion, blows the fourth, how many Chucky? 4th, 5, and 6th movie out of the water. And this is just unbelievable to me. I was really, really surprised. Then towards, I don't know, towards the second, somewhere in the second half of the movie, this psychiatrist asshole doctor guy ends up getting a third doll in the mail, and I can't even remember where this movie reminds you of Psycho 2, you know, Psycho 2, where it's all just all over the place and it almost makes you psycho watching Psycho 2. This movie reminded me a lot of that, in a good way, because it's so goofy. It's really hard to remember all what's going on. But a third good guy doll comes into the mix with really short hair, and you know, having only seen it twice, I can't even remember where this third good guy doll came from. But basically, at the end of the day, what ends up happening is kind of, admittedly, it's kind of contrived. But you know what? For this far along in the Chucky movies and stuff, I just went with it because it's so well done, in my opinion, conceived and executed. And I gotta also admit, or also say, that I think that the guy who, you know, was basically wrote and directed all the Chucky movies from Seed on up or whatever, and Matt had commented about him not being a particularly great director. I think he's really, really, really improved with this movie. Not only written a really, really interesting story that really goes by quick, but also I think the movie was made in an extremely competent way directorially. So whether that was to his credit or not, I think this movie is done relatively well. So a third doll, what I was getting at is a third doll ends up showing up, and you know, admittedly kind of contrived or whateverness, roll your eyes-ness at this you will or not. Chucky, the reason Chucky is not only at its severed head the reason Chucky is not only a severed head at Alex Vincent's place and at this place is because he's learned how to basically put his soul, yes, it's kind of goofy and kind of, you know, a cheat or whatever. He's learned how to put his soul in multiple things all at once, which, yeah, it is kind of dumb, but it's kind of cool. You know, the way it's done in the movie, you just kind of have fun with it. You go with it. So basically, towards the end of the movie, he puts his soul into 3 good guy dolls, and all of them have physical characteristics which, you know, be able to differentiate them apart. Not that they're anything to be differentiated apart from, because they're all the same soul and the same 3 dolls, but towards the end of the movie, it's almost like a, you know, a Three Stooges thing, and it's really kind of cool. And it's just, it really plays with you. This movie really messes with you. It plays with you. You know what? I'm not going to spoil. I was originally going to spoil the end of this movie, but I'm not going to do it. The outcome of the movie is kind of surprising, and it really throws you for a loop, the outcome of the movie, and it really makes you wonder how they could ever possibly do another sequel with the way this movie ends. That's all I'll say. It ends in a way that I don't think I remember a Child's Play movie ever ending before. So absolutely phenomenal Cult of Chucky. It was such a great blind buy. I wrote 2.5 stars. I don't even know if that's high enough, to be honest, for this movie. Let's just say 2.5. You know, inching towards 2 3/4 stars out of 4. In my opinion, once again, the best Child's Play movie or Chucky movie since the third movie. It really messes with your head. It really makes you just laugh and kind of delight at the stuff that the guy, I can't remember the name of the guy, but the writer-director of this movie, it really makes you smile and delight at what he came up with. And Chucky, actually, like the doll and stuff, I don't think there's any CG Chucky in this movie. What they probably did is, you know, puppeted and removed like the puppetation and stuff like that. But Chucky, he's looking okay. He's the fresh face. You know, Chucky, the Chucky I like the most. I don't like the stitched together face Chucky. I have never liked that. So it's none of that's in this. Andy Barclay does end up showing up towards the end of the movie. through some online research, he shows up at the mental hospital where the whole movie takes place and tries to, kill Chucky, only to be, I think, bested by Chucky in a way that I won't mention. You can, I won't spoil. You can see that for yourself. But yeah, really strong sequel. I mean, at this point, it's ironic because I had, after Curse of Chucky, I had all but given up on this franchise, and I actually thought it was over. But amazingly, there's some fresh, in my opinion, some very, 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 very new life breathed into the franchise at this point. It'll be interesting to see where the hell they take it after this, if anywhere, with the way that this movie ended. And just like with the after the credits of Curse of Chucky, after the credits of this movie, we get another a former character from another Child's Play movie, Child's Play 2, the woman who played Kyle in Child's Play 2 reprises briefly her role as Kyle at the end of, after the credits of this movie, showing up at Andy's, log cabin house, where Chucky is severed and blown halfway in half. Head is sitting on the table, Kyle appears. I can't remember what the hell the line is, but it's definitely the woman who, it's the woman who played Kyle in Child's Play 2. And that's kind of the tease for a possible next sequel. So possibly you might see, Alex Vincent return again, along with, Kyle in the next Child's Play movie. And I got to tell you, after seeing this one, I'm actually kind of hopeful that they will get to do another one. And I'm hoping that this movie did, obviously I don't know how the hell it sold or did in the home video market or whatever, but I'm kind of hoping it did well because I think it deserves to do well. And another reason why I want it to do well is I'm really kind of curious to see what the hell he come up with for a sequel to this, to be honest. I mean, the stuff is just so screwy by the time this movie ends that it's just like, how would you ever even do it? But I will say that without giving the ending away, it definitely ends in a way where it could really be seen in a lot of ways as the end of the franchise. So if they end up not doing any more Chucky movies, it is a kind of a wrapping thing. It could be considered a good wrapping up of the whole series in a lot of ways. So if it is the last one, it's a fantastic last one. If not, I'm really curious to see what the hell he comes up with next. So thank you very much for watching this review, and as always, we'll catch you next time.